to you how to offer ICAPS IET training components and bridge virtually or as a hybrid. And so what we're going to really do today is look and hear from our peers. Today is a lot of hearing from our peers, a lot of breakout sessions. We do have this session till 9:30. At 9:30, you do get a break. And just like yesterday, you'll have ample opportunities for breaks throughout the day. We do wrap up at noon, so you'll have lunch on your own today. If you want conference chicken, that's up to you. And just a couple little things for housekeeping as we get started. Right now, you are muted. If you have any questions or comments, we encourage you to post those in the chat box, and we'll be able to address those as we go. And with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Sarah. Oh, one last thing. We are going to be sending out an evaluation at the close today. So right around noon, that'll be in your inbox. We do really encourage you to take a minute and fill out that evaluation because there's a lot of great questions in there, and we use that to shape and improve our professional development. So it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to fill out, but we do encourage you to fill out that evaluation that you'll get today. So with that, Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Amy. Welcome, everybody. We're very excited this morning to feature two programs to talk to us about how they are pivoting and offering ICAPS IET training component virtually, and also take a little look at their bridge programs. We have Danville Area Community College. Laura Williams is here. And we also have Joliet Junior College, and we have a panel from there, 4 individuals who are going to join us. We're going to let Laura go first, so I'm going to turn it over to her. You already see her screen, so Laura, take it away, and thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you on this lovely Friday. It's a beautiful day, so we'll take that, right? So I would like to talk about how we offered our ICAPS virtually, and we literally, just like most of you, had to jump right in there. It was not something we were doing before COVID, but it's something we're very comfortable with now, and I was just amazed at how quickly our team could transition to that. So we offer a number of different classes for ICAPS depending on which year it is and which semester, but for the purpose of this is the one that we're offering online. It is our CNA ICAPS, and you can see we have a support-based class early in the morning, and then we, along with the shared CTE CNA class, then we have a lunch, then we have our HSE class in the afternoon, and then we have an essential skills job ready portion, and then our clinicals. You know, this was how it was supposed to be, February to May. So this was the plan. So before I start, I would just like to say, I'm going to cover a couple of themes. So teachers, students, and administrators, and my best tips of what you should do to get ready to go online. And then I'm going to talk about what we actually did online. So let me change my view real quick because we are in the way of my PowerPoint. Okay, so ensure that your teachers have the proper equipment and that they're ready to work remotely. This includes a strong internet, a computer, a camera, and a mic. I had several of my teachers, oh yeah, we're ready, we're good. And then when you get them on a Zoom, it's like, and you know, the buzzing and can't see people. And another person said, yeah, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. They didn't have a camera and a mic. They just assumed that their computer had that. So you need to really make sure, you know, ask these questions and make sure your teachers have this capability. Ensure that they can use the technology, because having the technology and using the technology, two very separate things. So just running through, and even I had never used Zoom before March, and you know, the cameras and all of these different things. So you know, try to go through that and make sure people are comfortable with that, and then make sure that they have the emails, passwords, and logons, because you may have that as you know, the teacher needs to have that in case the administrator is not able to run the session or is not there, or the students always want to get in there. Then a bonus tip, I've got some little bonuses throughout there. I love this camera. It's a camera mic combination, has great reviews. It was $35.28 from Amazon. So I love it. You simply plug it in. It's my kind of technology. Plug it in. Students, ensure they have the proper equipment to work remotely. Again, the same thing, the strong internet, the computer, the camera, the mic. Ensure they can use the technology. Have them practice logging in. So DAC was face-to-face this at the beginning of the fall. We just literally went remotely Wednesday, 2 days ago. So what I told all of my teachers when we came back, everybody's in the computer lab. Every class is going to the computer lab. I don't care if it's my CNA or my HSE or my support, everyone goes to the computer lab and you practice logging in with our Zoom and things like that. And sure, the students have the logins, the passwords, the codes. What we did was get their email address. But how many of you know that their email address is probably just like their phone number and it changes every other day? They don't know how to get in, what email. We connected with them with email. We'd have them send emails to the teachers in class. And then we printed off both the paper, this is how you do it, these are your passwords. And then we sent them as links when they were giving us their emails. Make sure that they have the textbooks if they're going to be working from home and disposable workbooks if you're using disposable workbooks and the equipment to take home. DAC has a program for all college students where they can borrow loaner hotspots. Well, the hotspots aren't really loaners, but I mean, you do loan it, but those run out in a few months. Computers, cameras, microphones, earphones. But on top of that, we received a grant, and I'll talk about that some of you probably did too, but we were relying on DAC at first. And then practice, practice, practice. Again, if you aren't using technology regular in your HSE classes, that has to be a priority. I think as a part of our grant, that's one of the stipulations, but a few years ago, we had a computer teacher here and the students were going to that on a regular basis. Well, when the funding got tight with the state, that was one of the things we dropped a few years back, and I didn't add that teacher back in. However, you see the need. We have to make sure our students are using this technology. That's the world we're in. Administrators, breathe. We've got this. We're strong. Have a plan to guide you and ensure, hang on a minute, I got to move my box, and to ensure your seamless transition. So, we were blindsided in March. Now we know what to do. So just being prepared, have that plan. Having it on paper helps you go through the steps and try to remember everything. And you can always tweak that and add things to it. So having that practical plan instead of just in your mind, because any of us could go out at any time, right? I had my CNA teacher actually caught COVID, and she just got out of the hospital Monday. We all have to be ready to go. This can be any of us at any time. So everyone needs to know that plan that's in your office. Get the grants. When you have an opportunity, jump on it, even if you're not 100% how you're going to use it. These things come out fast. You have to react fast. We've had 2 opportunities since March to put in for extra money to buy technology. So in March or April, whenever that came through, we put in for $5,000 because I thought, June's almost here. I have to have all my money spent. I don't know if I can use extra money. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I didn't really have a great plan in my mind, but I'm like, I could probably use $5,000 to buy disposable books and have disposable materials. So even though I didn't have an exact plan, have a thought there. And then of course, when we had the other one not too long ago, I put in for $25,000. Or I actually put in for more. I received $25,000 from ICCB's partnership. And so I'm going to use that to buy my own technology that I have here that I can use just for my HSE ICAPS students. Get any pre-approvals in writing for curriculum. So I'm going to show you in a minute something that we use when we had to go online for our CNA skills. So for example, we had to have that approved by the Illinois Department of Public Health, because we weren't the only entity blessing this class. So that obviously works through the health department. So we needed to get their approval to say, yeah, that we're going to do this. And then I'm always an in writing person. It's fine to talk to somebody on the phone and then you have that, but I like to have, reply to me in writing and do that email. So you have that documentation if you should ever need it, if there's ever any audits or, did you get approval? Well, sure, I got approval. Here's that. So think about any pre-approvals that you need to have. Schedule the sessions. It's one thing to let the teachers schedule their own, but then we were bumping into each other, and I'll talk about that in a few. But what we do is we have 3 different accounts with Zoom, and we have 3 administrators that's over that, and I'll show you that in a minute. Monitor the sessions occasionally. It's just like if they're having the classrooms on your campus, pop into those sessions. Excuse me. and see how they're doing. And then you can kind of give feedback. You can see what the students are seeing, and then get feedback, because again, we want to know what everyone's thinking. So an example here, so we have Zoom. Sarah, are you seeing can you guys see the PowerPoint, or are the pictures of us in the way?
We can see the PowerPoint.
Perfect. So it's just on my screen. So we have Zoom. And again, we have 3 accounts. And why I like Zoom, and again, never was a Zoom user before March, but quick and easy. It's cheap. It's user friendly. You can have multiple users. It has cool features that you can breakout sessions and whiteboards and things like that. So what we do, we have 1 account, and we have 3 different groups in that account, and we pay $449.70 for those 3 groups for the year. Now with the group management, this is kind of little, you can't see, but we have a group A, B, and C. We have an administrator that's in charge of each of those groups, because each group is attached to an email. So these are my group of teachers, and I schedule them. And when they log on, they have my logon and password information, and they know that that's where they're going to go to start their meetings. So meetings, again, super easy. You pull it up, the teacher pulls it up, and then shows the meeting, shows upcoming meetings right here, shows Glenn's recurring class meeting, and you just click start. So I don't have to be in that meeting as an administrator. Glenn has the password and the login. He runs the class, but I can join at any time. Or if something does happen with Glenn and Glenn can't take care of that class, I can pop in and meet with the students. Or if I have announcements or stuff, time to register, things like that, I can get in on that meeting too and talk to the students. Here's an example. So before we had our online skills that I purchased, but we also were doing skills at home. So the teacher, she's in the middle here, and she's instructing the students. Obviously this was brushing teeth, and you can see they had to get a family member to practice on. And so she's actually seeing those skills and walking through that. It was a practical way to make sure we could still do skills. Now, for this semester, this was in March. For this semester, again, we were face-to-face at the beginning. I had all of my instructors do all skills and all hands-on things for all my classes at the beginning. Normally, we save those till the end. We're like, anything face-to-face, try to do at the beginning. So we kind of flipped that classroom. So just some Zoom tips that we've learned. Make sure your users know how to use it. Make sure one person is doing the scheduling. What happened is I had one of my teachers pop in there, and she started scheduling her own meetings, which knocked out other people's meetings, which messed up. The students now no longer have the login and password because she changed it. So it caused a lot of problems. So, if people don't have their own individual Zooms, you need to make sure that one person is in charge of that group. Make sure you set the recording disclaimer. Sorry, I have this automatic light that won't stop shutting off. I have a work order in, but it does it all the time. So, the recording disclaimer, a lot of people forget this. It is against the law to record somebody without their permission, and that includes with cell phones. So you need to make sure that you have the recording disclaimer set, and Zoom has a link for that. And if you don't, if you want that information, you can email me if you want me to send something to you later, but make sure you have that as an automatic default. That way, anybody that's using the Zoom, that disclaimer comes up and they have the chance to log out of that. So Elsevier Evolve, that's what we use for our clinical skills. So we were trying to find an online provider, a good provider for skills, and my instructors were very happy with this. Again, we paid $50 for each user. So, it was extra money, but again, we had some extra money, right? So we could use these to buy license to make sure people were getting done. Again, make sure you get that state approval in writing, just so you have that if you ever need the backup. And these were just really cool videos. They went through a lot of information. Again, good for 3 years. This was an added bonus for our students, because when you finish the class, you're done. You've got your book and you have your head knowledge, but you don't have any other access. And they take their test after they get out of the class, right? Their state test. So with this, they have 3 years of of access to these skills so they can keep going back in. So if they take their test and they don't do so well and they want to go back and look at some things and read, they have access to this for 3 years. So added bonus. iPathways. I love iPathways. I've always loved iPathways. It's amazing. You know, there's great lessons in there. And if you're not using this, I've got it here. Why would we need anything else? So of course we do need other things to augment what we're doing, but iPathways is a great way to get some content and to see how your students are doing. It's free. It's easy. Of course, it's ICCB approved. So iPathways, it's our friend. And if you don't know how to use it, I'm sure Kathy Olson Tracy would be more than happy to run a session of how to help you use this. And funny story, poor Kathy. So she had just started the job, you know, right when COVID was hitting, and we were going on spring break the next week, and I just knew we weren't coming back. So I called Kathy that morning. I'm like, hey, I have all my teachers coming in here. Will you do a quick iPathways training? So literally she goes, let me brush my hair. And she called me back in 5 minutes. She was ready to go. My teachers were in the room. She did that quick. This is how you do it. This is how you log on. So, you know, plenty of support there. And again, free. I like free. So it's a great opportunity for you to keep the students learning, and the students can learn at their own pace, because we all know our students are parents, our students have jobs, our students have other obligations. So how do we keep serving them in this crazy world when now all of a sudden they have their kids at home and they're trying to help them do things online, and you know, maybe they can't meet at a certain time synchronously when you're doing your Zoom. We need to have something that they can log on to. So my support-based teacher and my ICAPS CNA teacher, they were working together with this whole process and talking, of course, communicating and making sure they weren't overlapping. Someone wasn't scheduling a Zoom at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and the HSE teacher wasn't scheduling 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. And again, with an administrator overseeing that section, we could make sure that they weren't bumping. And then remember, you got this. We've got it. You just got to breathe, take your time, and go through it. So I've got a couple of minutes for questions, Sarah, but if not, I'll jump off and pass it to Joliet.
All right, thank you very much, Laura. And Laura has to run and fulfill an obligation for her college president, so we all can understand her need to go. We appreciate you giving us the time that you have. If you have any questions, you can throw those in the chat. Let's see. I see some people telling thanks and appreciative, but I don't see any questions at this point. So I think we probably should release you and make sure that you stay in good standing.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's important. So we'll let Michelle bring up her screen. All right, we'll have a little transition here. And as I mentioned, we have a whole team from Joliet. We thank you so much for bringing the whole team here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Lyman and let her introduce her team.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's going to be a gorgeous day, a great Friday, and I want to thank everybody for letting Joliet Junior College tell you a little bit about our bridge, ICAPS and IETs, pre-COVID, going into COVID, and now moving forward. Today, I have our Dean of Career Tech Education, Patty Zuccarello.
Good morning.
Hi. Our Chair of the Business Education Department, Bill O'Connor. And then our incredible HSE support class, bridge, and co-teacher for the IET, Angela Logwood, with us. And today, our theme is Together Apart, we have our students at heart. And I know across the state, all of us are sharing that sentiment together. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how important it is to have that dream team in order to make your IETs, our bridges work, whether they're virtually or if we ever get back to in-person or hybrid. It is really important that you have your administrators, like your deans of career tech ed and adult ed on board. You also need to have incredible instructors who can share that vision together. So these are our pictures. This is Angela, our instructor, and Jim Revis down in the corner. He teaches a lot of our business classes, and they are just seamless. They can almost read each other's minds now. They're working on their 5th cohort. Bill is the chair of our business department, and then I am the college and career transition specialist and kind of the ringmaster of the circus. And you really do need a navigator to hold everything together.
Well, I'm the administrator, so I like to insert disruption while Michelle is trying to hold things together for us. One of the things I think we do in academic affairs is every now and then we get a chance to actually run with scissors. And I feel very strongly Bill O'Connor, who's my partner in the running with the scissors in this case, shares this kind of idea. Often in higher ed, we get very into the default answer being no. There are always a million reasons why a project probably should not be done, or you need to proceed with caution, or you need to think more deeply about certain kinds of issues. I'm not saying that we don't entertain those issues. I guess what I'm saying is this particular group of humans who works on this project, our default setting tends towards yes more than it tends towards no. And I think that's a really important aspect when you're building your team. So one of the things we kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about today is this idea about like having yes be your default setting, and that running with scissors is really okay. And it's okay to challenge the status quo and to think about how things could be different and ideally a lot better for the students that you serve. So I think that was kind of one of the hallmarks of this project. We had already done IET with logistics in the past. When the grant came out from ICCB, we were thinking about how we could really scale what we saw as the meaningful project to reach more students. And I think kind of to what Laura was speaking to earlier, these are students that have so much going on in their lives. Our previous iterations were campus bound, and we thought if we could start to put things online, this would really open this project to an untapped market of students. So we also were thinking about that when we look at our online learning on our campus, online learning is the 2nd largest campus at our institution. So our main campus is the most populated. Online learning is the 2nd most, and then our other remote campuses come after that. Because of that, we have a lot of resources invested in online learning to support faculty and students as they embark on that. So we thought we had a lot of resources we could leverage in order to make this idea really fly. And then we also were looking at what our innovation board determines as kind of the hot areas for high demand, high growth, high wage, excuse me. And logistics in our area is one of those areas because we are the 3rd largest inland port just south of our campus. So it's a really hot job market and opportunity for students. It also tends to be one of these industries that's predominantly white, predominantly male. And again, when we partner with adult ed, they have a very diverse population. And it's a way for us to look at bringing this high demand, high wage job to a different market and to kind of help bring some equity and diversity to a pathway that frankly needs a little bit of that. So basically we started having these conversations with Michelle and saying like, hey, what do you think about doing it totally online? And Michelle, having worked with us, was like, oh, okay, they're running with scissors, but it's going to be all right. And she was really instrumental in helping us think through, if we want to put this online, how do we do it in a way that's going to help students be successful? And I think that was a key feature here as we headed into the pandemic. Unbeknownst to us, we had already determined that this project was going to be kind of a hybrid bridge and then an online IET project. So we were in some ways better positioned for what was about to befall us than maybe some of our other partners. And I'll let Angela talk a little bit about how she's accounted for that, because we had imagined it would be online, but that we would still have a designated on-campus space for this program to happen for students to access resources.
So we'll let Bill talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the program.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. It's good to be here, everyone. Let me talk about that, but I just first, if I could just comment a little bit on what Patty was talking about, the concept of running with scissors and taking risks. And I'd like to just tell you a little bit about why our business department is so committed to that kind of thinking, and clarify exactly what we mean by that. And in the business department, I like to say that we are entrepreneurial in our thinking. Most of the people, the faculty in the business department, worked in other organizations. They worked in businesses, hospitals, ran businesses. And so they come in with this kind of entrepreneurial thinking, which involves taking risks. And as Patty says, running with scissors is a good way of putting it. I want to explain something about taking risks. By taking risks, we don't mean engage in careless conduct, engage in reckless conduct, act carelessly. By taking risks, we mean having creative thinking and be willing to develop new ideas that haven't happened before. And as Patty said, not just have yes the default answer. And another thing about risks, they don't just pop up. Risk opportunities just don't pop up and we decide to take them or not. Risks opportunities are created. In other words, as faculty and as administrators, and we have to look for risks. We have to create those risks and find opportunities that are, that we can take in order to develop new programs and new ways of course delivery. They don't just pop up to us and then we make a choice whether to accept the risk or not. So I'm very, very thankful for the kind of support that I have from my dean, from Patty Zuccarella, and from Michelle Lyman. I've worked with administrators, as Patty talked about, who the default was no. And what that does is it stifles creative thinking. Faculty say, well, why should I spend months coming up with a new idea just to be told, oh, no, we don't do it that way. So faculty have to have an entrepreneurial attitude, and administrators have to be willing to support that and work with faculty. Otherwise, it doesn't grow. So I really appreciate that support. On it. So by entrepreneurial thinking, what I mean is this. About 6 or 8 years ago, our business department was undergoing an accreditation review from our accrediting body, the Accreditation Council of Business Schools and Programs. And it's a very rigorous review, and we had to really do a careful deep dive analysis of our programs, how we serve students, how we support students, and what we do. And many of us, what we did, we read a book that I recommend called Good to Great by Jim Cooper. And he identifies three factors that let an organization move from being good and good quality and above average to being really great, which I think our supply chain program that we've been talking about is an example of great thinking. So what he talks about is three factors that you have to understand about your organization. First, you have to understand what is your economic driver, what enables you to continue operations, and it might be a product or what. But for us, we looked at it and said, well, what really drives us are the residents and the taxpayers of our district. We wouldn't be in business. We're the oldest community college, as many of you know. We've been around 120 years. That's 7 generations. For 7 generations, the people of our district have sent their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren to us. And we owe them something. We feel that we owe them so, and we understand that we can't be successful unless we serve those residents of our district who cover 2/3 or so of our costs. The next factor Cooper talks about is having a passion. And I think that our faculty, and I think the administrators that I work with Patty Zuccarello and Michelle and others, have that same passion too. And that passion is to serve the students. It's tied to the first one. What's our economic driver? We want to serve community college students of our district. And we know that many of those are first generation students. They're minority students. They're people seeking new careers. So we have a passion for serving those people. But the third thing is the difficult one, and that is there something you can be the best in the world at? Is there something you can truly lead the world? And that was a tough one for us as a community college in Joliet, Illinois. We have an excellent accounting program, but not necessarily the best in the world. Our supply chain management is really good, but the University of Michigan has a great program. The University of Pennsylvania has a great program. And so we have good programs, but so we started looking, what can we be great at and better than anyone in the world? And what we decided that is the concept of accessibility, providing high quality, affordable education that's accessible to students. And what I mean by that accessibility is we have students that are really challenged in terms of their time. Many of them are working a job, maybe 2 jobs. They have family commitments, they're raising children. And it's difficult for them to afford education and to find time. With on-campus classes, many of our working students could come to class 1 night a week. That's all they could devote. And so it could take them 10 years to complete a 2-year degree going at that rate. We started looking, what can we do? And we came up with the idea, which is risk-taking and entrepreneurial, of let's use 8-week classes that are of a hybrid nature, where the class meets half the time and uses online. And so we started doing is we took just an example, and we do it with the supply chain program. Students take in a semester 2 8-week classes in back-to-back 8-week sessions. And so there they get 6 credit hours coming the same night. They come, say, Tuesday night. Then at 5 o'clock, for 16 weeks, they take a 3rd class. And so they're taking 3 classes in the semester, getting 9 hours instead of 3 hours. And they're doing it coming only 1 night a week. And by using the hybrid classes, the 5:30 class can run an hour and a half. And then the first 8 weeks, they do a class for 2 hours, and the second 8 weeks, another class. I went into our adult evening, mostly adult students evening classes to talk about this idea when we first started. And I know this sounds a little silly or exaggerated, but I had students actually with tears in their eyes when they heard this, that you mean I'm going to be able to finish in 2 or 3 years instead of 5 or 10? I said, yeah, we can do this, and it's working well. Oftentimes it's the same instructor doing a 5 o'clock class and then the 2 8-week classes. So that's worked really well for us. A second problem besides the time is that students come in, especially the adult working students, and they're fearful. They're afraid of college. They haven't been in school, even if they're 35, they haven't been in school for 18 years or so, 17, 18 years, and they come back kind of intimidated. And I found that what they were often being advised was, oh, come into class and come into JJC and get your gen eds out of the way. Take English, take math, take science. And we started looking and saying, but that's what intimidated them. Being in a class with a bunch of 18-year-olds talking about literature, talking about philosophy, they didn't feel comfortable. We switched the emphasis and we said, for those returning adult students who come to us, get a certificate first, and that's on our list here, a stackable certificate. Get a certificate, which is typically 17, 18, 21 credit hours, all in career business classes. So we have a certificate in human resource management and in the supply chain that we've been talking about. We have a one in entrepreneurship. We have them in marketing and management. the student only takes classes in accounting, economics, business law, different management classes, and marketing classes. And what we found is students feel very comfortable in these kind of classes. It's stuff that they deal with on their job. So when we're talking about management or employment law, the students can say, oh yeah, here's how we do it at my company or where I work or where I used to work. So we found that getting these certificates is a really good way for those students to start. And then after they've had a couple of classes, they're used now to reading and studying and speaking up in class and taking quizzes and tests. They're much more comfortable moving into the English classes or the science and other gen ed classes that they need to complete the degree. So the stackable certificate is a series of classes that all add on towards a 2-year associate of applied science degree and sometimes towards an associate of arts transfer degree. So the students are taking classes that apply towards a degree. In supply chain, the students take the 17 hours. 14 of those hours are in actual supply chain classes, and then 1 is a general business class. We're using our human relations class, a management class, and students take that class, and they are very well prepared for that because it's how do you get along on working in teams, how do you set goals for yourself, how do you manage time. And those kind of things are things that they're used to from both their personal lives, running households, or at work. So the students then can move on from the supply chain certificate, and next they can move up to an associate of applied science in management. We decided not to have an associate of applied science in supply chain. We thought an associate degree in management, where the supply classes all added to that, was a more versatile degree, and we thought that would work better.
Thanks,
So
Bill.
the supply certificate seems to work really well. And once the student has completed that certificate, and if they're taking 9 hours in a semester on an accelerated basis, they can do that in a year or less. They can do it oftentimes in a summer session and a fall session or a spring session. So not too far into their education, they pick up a credential that they can use. I mentioned about the accelerated classes and moving to online. So we're finding that those are very, very helpful. The third factor, in addition to the understanding your, in addition to fear and time constraints, is the concept of navigation. Students come back and they have a very difficult time navigating the college world, dealing with the admissions office, the registration office, financial aid, tutoring, all kinds of things. So and selecting their programs, they oftentimes, when they're left on their own, they take classes. A student will take a class that doesn't count for what they want to do. They don't take a class, and that sets them back in time. So what we've moved to is a very intensive, intrusive advising plan, where advisors are faculty in the department. They're not general people that advise students all over campus, from anything from welding to fine arts. Our advisors are trained. They understand what the needs are of business students. And we reach out to students and really promote and push them to work with an advisor. And the advisor then helps them plan their schedules, helps them select programs. And that really intensive advising, a real good example of that is, and the support we get is in the supply chain, because those students are closely advised, and also with the tutor that we have working with them embedded in the class. That tutor actually attends the classes with the students, takes part in the classes, and is able then to work with the students to help tutor them. And also,
Thank you.
so those
Thank
things,
you.
that's what we have as our contribution.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thanks.
Bill.
Thanks, Michelle.
Good segue. So Bill was talking about how do we address the training needs of adult ed students? And it's really important. And this is a concept that I think everybody needs to take to heart. First, the student must trust you before they trust the process. Because again, we're working with students that are English language learners or are working towards earning their high school equivalency and working on their GED. And so to tell them, we're going to have you start college courses while, right, concurrently, while you are working towards your English fluency or your high school equivalency, they think this isn't going to work. Okay, and I don't know how this is going to work, but if you are really supportive and you gain their trust, they're willing to get on that bridge with you. And so we developed an intensive blended bridge class. And what we're doing with this intensive bridge class is preparing students not only for what they're going to be seeing in a credit class, but also with the technology, because we're going to be going online. So those emails, passwords, logins, our learning module platform, which is Canvas. How do you log in? How do you do your homework? How do you submit your quizzes and tests? It's also really important that you have the right bridge and support instructor. And we used a veteran, Angela, who has been in a 3 other cohorts, so she knows what the students need and what needs to be expected of them. And our students are, the bridge is blended. It is ESL students and high school equivalency. So at one point, we did have an ESL support instructor along with an HSE instructor, just to get her started for the first semester to teach her how ESL students learn. And then she just took off on her own, which is incredible. We do use a cohort model, and I like to introduce the students to the lessons from GEES. And if there's time at the end, I do have a video about the lessons from GEES. But basically what it talks about is some of the things that we can learn when we teach our cohorts is to look at what the geese do. For instance, they fly in a V formation, which shows unity. So the V, actually, their wings make the flight 70% more efficient by flying together and uniting in that V. It also, geese teach us about interdependence, because what'll happen is you have a lead goose, and if he or she tires, he rotates to the back and somebody else steps up. And so we're teaching this cohort about interdependence. And then I'm not sure if you've known this, but when you see the V formation and the geese flying, you hear a lot of honking. And that is actually cheering. And they're doing that so that the lead goose, doesn't tire, and they're being encouraging. And we're teaching our cohorts that let our words be encouraging, let our support be encouraging. We're in this together. And then it also, the lessons from geese teach about loyalty. And so if a goose is sick or injured, 2 will fly down and stay with the sick or injured goose till it either passes away or is better. And then they fly and either join a new flock or meet up with their old flock. And then lastly, where they're going, especially this time of year, we see them flying south, and that's about rejuvenation. And we stress that in our cohorts, that take time to recharge and rejuvenate. That's really important because we're in an accelerated model here. And so we do expect them to have time for family, time to relax, so that they're have that good work-life school balance. The other thing is the support that we got from the business department and the dean of Career Tech Ed. They gave us a dedicated computer lab. This was pre-COVID, where our students, even though they were 100% online, could gather, they could do their homework together. Our support teacher could also navigate through some of those harder lessons. We had e-textbooks. These are very important, folks. We did give them the loose leaf and the hard books, but we knew with the e-textbooks, since 100% of our students, English was not their native language, they could highlight their text and convert it into their native language. So then doing the homework and the readings were a lot more efficient and easier. We provided loaner laptops to any student who is having difficulty, because this is not something that you can strictly do on your phone, which our students do try to attempt to do that. But we made sure that if they needed hotspots or laptops, we made a way for them to get that. a dedicated support class. This is really important. And we find that the general students that are not a part of the cohort come to the support class. We open it, they're always invited, and they're doing better in their credit classes by coming to the support. And then our CTE instructor, even though he was 100% online, he would pop in person. And then once COVID hit, he would pop in by Zoom. And he actually would sit with the students and do homework with them. So the whole idea of this was to get the cohort ready for 100% online learning. And then we were going to let them fly solo in the summer. But we all know what happened in the spring. Angela, I'll let you take this and explain what happened in the spring.
So this picture was taken in Starbucks right before the shutdown of all the inside dining. So this cohort was that cohort in the spring that was supposed to start flying in the summer online. And in March, we were told that everyone would stay at home and they had to begin all of their learning online immediately. So this was the very last day before Starbucks shut down, this picture, and we had to meet as a group. We didn't have much time. They had to learn how to download their online textbooks. They had to learn how to work Zoom because that's the way we were going to be meeting in the future. They had to learn how to use the program for homework, My Lab, that they weren't familiar with yet, which hadn't been introduced. And we just talked about resources and reaching out virtually to each other to support each other because they're a family. So they had to learn how to talk to each other virtually and create group chats to speak with each other and to encourage each other the way they normally would do in person. Now they would have to do all of these things virtually. So it was a bit of a transition for them, but they jumped right in. We just tried it. We just said, let's just try it. We know that I kept telling them, I know that we talked about summer and we were preparing for summer, but give it a shot before you just say it's impossible and you're not going to be able to do it. And they were all willing to jump in. They were wonderful when it came to asking questions. We set up a Remind and they were able to communicate with me real time with that. If they had questions, they could send them to me. They had a group chat for themselves that they kind of encouraged each other and talked about different topics that they struggled with. I had to convert all of the in-person handouts and things that I normally would give out in class to online versions, incorporate videos to help students with some of the topics that I might have been teaching on the board. So now I had to find more creative ways to keep them engaged. I started every class with an inspirational video, and I would choose a different celebrity or different person that they were familiar with to keep them encouraged to keep going. And then we did have we had to learn how to use Cami, which is a great tool for them. Some of the handouts that I normally would use, all I had to do was upload the PDF and then teach them how to use Cami so that they could actually participate and write on those things that normally they would be handwriting in classes. And then Remind also, I was able to use Google Translator to translate my messages so that everyone understood the information that I was presenting to them every week. If something changed or if something happened on the fly, there was a Zoom that the CTE teacher was able to do, and we needed to participate in that. I was able to send that information to them so that everyone could be there and receive the help that they needed. And then we had guest speakers come in. We had several workshops in the spring. We had a financial aid workshop to help them to keep going. Because the program was going to be ending, but of course, the idea is for them to continue and to go all the way. And so we had those guest speakers come in, and JJC just has a plethora of people that are willing to help and support these cohorts. So I think that's the glue that brings all of this together.
And then Patty, can you tell us about on-ramps and off-ramps?
Sure. I think one of the things we started to realize, which isn't uncommon in CTE, is that our stackable certificates are very smooth in the way they stack in certain areas and a little less smooth in other areas. And I think this was one of the cases where the business faculty had already been thinking about making some changes. And then once we started having this kind of volume of students going through these certificates, we realized that the changes we wanted to make to do course substitutions for this group of students were changes we wanted to make for all students. So Bill did some really great work with his faculty team to figure out like what these certificates should really look like and get those changes made more officially at the college through our curriculum process. So I think that was definitely helpful. I think as a dean, it was really interesting to kind of see this convergence of just kind of faculty and staff and students kind of coming together and looking at this piece of curriculum and kind of thinking about ways that it could be better, stronger, faster for students. And Bill already talked about the hybrid idea, and then also we do a lot of acceleration so that students can get through not just a 10-year plan faster, but like all of our business programs have these 8-week modularized pieces of curriculum to try to help with that acceleration and, as Bill pointed out, fit into their lives a little bit better. So I really feel like this project has become kind of the roadmap for us as we look at other CTE programs to be more student friendly and to still continue to serve industry properly, but to really be thinking about how students move through the curriculum and make your curriculum actually look like that, instead of having this curriculum where you have to keep doing substitutions and waivers and a lot of manual processes to make it work for students.
Thank you. So moving forward, we knew that it would be challenging to do recruitment in a virtual environment. So first, so we're thinking, okay, we got our cohort through COVID, and now we're recruiting and starting with our next cohort. How do we do this recruiting? So at first I was doing virtual class visits by Zoom, but the students and the instructors were frustrated because what they were thinking is, I don't have time to think about college. I'm trying to learn English, or I'm trying to get my GED here. So I would oftentimes see the tops of people's heads while they were taking notes or working on something other than listening about how do we get them to get on board and be engaged with an IET or a bridge. So I thought, okay, I can go from class to class, but this isn't very efficient. So I started to train the trainer. I got our instructors excited. So during their professional development and their teacher meetings, I would talk a little bit about what is a bridge. And I would talk a little bit about industry in transportation, warehouse, logistics, or in some of the other career path bridges that we offer. And once I got the teachers on board and excited, they would go on and tell their students, have you thought about your next step? I also have a colleague, Kathy Kramer, who does Facebook Lives. And so she would interview people and we would make it as part of their homework. Watch the Facebook Live, it's recorded if you can't do it actually live, and then write about it and submit it. But this also then got them thinking about, hey, I was on Facebook and I saw that there's an opportunity to get some training for free. What's that about? We also went to our developmental education students that were majoring in transportation, warehouse, and logistics and said, here's an opportunity. Have you really thought about some extra support and maybe a little tuition assistance? So we did get a few that way. But our biggest, or not our biggest, but one of the other things is students oftentimes won't read an email, but they will look at their phones for text messages. So I did this mass text campaign through JJC's Communication Center saying, are you interested in free training? And my email and my phone blew up. So I highly recommend in a virtual environment using those text messages to recruit, to get information out. And then honestly, the biggest thing, word of mouth, student testimonials. That's how you grow your programs. And I am so incredibly proud of our students. The college is proud and they feature them. And so we actually did feature some successful students here. So this is Sophia, And she says, you know, at first she was really worried when her instructor, Angela, said, all right, we can't meet in class anymore. You're going to be completely working from home. And she just thought, you know what, I can't do it. I can't. I've got 2 kids that are still in school. They're going to be online. I don't know if I'm capable enough, but now she says, today I am completely comfortable as an online student. And she tells others, and people tell me, Sophia sent me. So that's, I mean, word of mouth. And this is Francisco. And he felt like he's like, I can't do this. You know, I'm working. How am I going to go online? But he said, our professors, Jim and Angela, worked so hard to make sure we have everything we need to finish the spring semester online, and then got us comfortable and prepared for summer. So their hard work and their push was the motivation that he needed to keep on going. And if you have Francisco's and Sophia's, please include them in your recruiting and ask them, because they're a lot more believable than the administrators or myself or your navigators, because people want to see what other people can do that look like them or have walked in their path. And then one of the things that we really want to stress is that we were not training people to be pickers and packers. We were actually training essential workers, and nothing has shown us this more so than when we see what happened with the global pandemic, the shortage of toilet paper, and then all of the Amazon boxes and online groceries showing up at our doorsteps. And so we knew that we had to help not just with these training of these professionals, but to really help them move up in their jobs. So we had assistance with resumes, like Bill said. Bill brought in employers so that students could network with them. We used to do field trips where the entire cohort would go to a warehouse and look. So now we're doing virtual field trips with employers. And we're starting to work with another grant to offer pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeship trainings for some of our graduates. And the other thing that I can't stress enough is to get excited and be engaged. And this is really important. We had promised the cohorts a celebration where they could invite their families, and we would give cake, because cake, believe me, people will come for cake and their certificates. And we were so sad when COVID hit because we could not have this party. But the students asked Angela, what about a drive-through graduation? And I said, all right, I'll ask, but I'm almost positive they're going to say no due to social distancing. But they didn't say no. And so that's the other thing about running with scissors. They're not allowed to punch you folks, just ask. They will usually say yes. And so our president, Dr. Judy Mitchell, said, I'll come out, and it was freezing in the rain. I'll help you pass out the certificates. This is Dr. Mitchell. Our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Gray, came. Bill was there, Angela, Jim, our Dean, Michelle Smith, Dr. Michelle Smith was there. And this is our instructional coordinator, our manager, Libby. She was the lead car, and they did a drive-by celebration where we gave them cake, a box of cookies, we gave them prizes, and they got their certificates. And since I couldn't show the video again about the story of geese, I put them in a shadow box. I had a friend who was a teacher who helped me make these. And so now they have the story and the lessons from geese on their desks. And on the back was my business card, should they ever need help ever again, whether they're with us or coming back with those on and off ramps. And this picture, this says a lot, right? This is Lydia. She's got her mask. You really can't see her smile, but yet you can. And she's just saying, I did it. I did it with help. I did it with support. I did it with this cohort, this family of learners. Celebrate these success, folks. Use this. This is on the front page of our JJC website to help encourage other students to let them know that they can do it. And we like to congratulate this cohort. I call it our COVID cohort because even a global pandemic couldn't stop this flock. And I can't point out who, but one of these students, her entire family had COVID, and she was she was very ill. The whole family could not work. 3 of the 4 people worked. And what did this cohort do? They cooked meals, they grocery shopped, they sent Amazon packages, they left them on her doorstep. They did her shopping for this person. And that's what a flock, that's the lessons from geese. That's what a cohort can do. That's how you survive this thing online and virtually. And I think we're right at 9:30. So you can click on the link yourself, but I do encourage you, there's a YouTube video that talks a little bit about the lessons from geese. I've also printed it here for you, and it's something that I hope that you'll use with your cohorts, because this is how we make it work, folks. We have to bring that human engagement. So together or apart, we put them at heart, our students. So I'm not sure if there's time for questions. I'll ask Sarah to.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, and to everybody. That's a lot of people are appreciating the inspiration and the ideas. We are at finish time, but we have a little bit of a buffer. So if people want to stay, there is a question or two to ask to the team if you're willing. Our next session does not start until 10. So let me, wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process of transitioning to 8 weeks from 16 weeks for your classes.
Bill, can you talk a little bit about that? You're on mute.
Yeah, mute. Bill, you need to unmute.
Hi, I'm on. Yeah. Am I on now?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
You're good.
Okay. It is a challenge because even though it's an 8-week class, we still have to meet the same learning outcomes, the same criteria in the class. We can't be cutting material. And so the instructor has to find a way to condense 16 weeks of material into 8 weeks. It basically means, instead of doing 1 chapter in the book a week, we're doing 2 chapters. So it requires just finding ways to consolidate the material, but it's a challenge because we're always subject to the criticism or the review that we're not really offering the full work and covering the learning outcomes. On the other hand, we historically at Joliet, and many schools do this, we have a 6-week summer session of classes. So faculty are used to, like in the supply chain classes that Jim Revis instructs, he's often taught classes in the summer in a 6-week session, which again is a real challenge, getting the material from 16 weeks down to 6. So it really just involves finding additional tools, we only can do the 16 weeks by using hybrid. It wouldn't work at all when we're on campus classes. It wouldn't work. Typically a class meets 3 hours during the week. So if it were fully on campus, they'd be coming 6 hours a week. They'd be coming twice a week for 3 long hours. And that would be very difficult to do. We certainly couldn't do the 9 hours in one without the hybrid. But the hybrid does, what it does with the hybrid classes, the students still have a chance to have some contact with the instructor and with each other in person, but then they're doing a lot of work online. And now that we've gone totally online during COVID with everything totally online, and we may continue that in a program like supply chain, the students are just putting in additional hours during the week. They're basically, it's basically the same content, the same assignments, and they're just doubling up the time on it. It definitely is a challenge, and there are instructors who won't do it, who just said, no, I can't do that. It's impossible to do. And the one last thing about it is that we find that students like it because sometimes in the 16-week class, they complain that it drags out too much. And the 8-week classes, they can really focus on it. So it works out well. In fact, I think our studies show that students in the 8-week classes do at least as well and typically better than students in 18 weeks of the same subject.
Thanks very much. Thanks for giving that information and the encouragement. I love that the attitude of let's say yes. That's inspirational. Right. And Michelle, you talked about this a little bit, but there was a question about if there's anything you want to add about any barriers you found in combining HSE and ESL support class.
So yeah, honestly, if you really think, at least at JJC, at Joliet, we were finding that even if it was HSE, they were not native English speakers, right? And they were Spanish or Polish or African French. And so we had to find ways so that we could reach students where English was not their native language. And so some of the things that our manager, Libby Budd, who was also instructor, she helped Angela do things like word walls. So she would say, you know, write down some words and vocabulary that you're not understanding. And at the end of class, we're going to talk about that. And it was a continuous word wall. You would constantly add that. The other thing too is the students, they would get on each other and say, let's try English. Let's try English. This bridge is a great place to try the English, as well as in the class. There's a lot of technologies with Translate that help. But the biggest thing is that we're one cohesive department. So our ESL coordinator, Mandy, or those instructors could help guide our HSE support teacher, Angela, on, have you tried using this? Maybe this Burlington English. You know, let some of the stronger students pair them with students that are having some challenges. So it's not easy, but it is doable. And that's just the way the population was. You know, what this cohort, 100% English was not their native language, but not 100%, they were not all ESL students. A lot of them were HSE. Oh, you're on mute.
You know, Michelle, you said that that's just the way the cohort was. And we got to give a lot of credit to the individuals in that cohort, but I also want to give credit to JJC for setting them up to be that cohesive group and setting them up to take care of each other, because that is a very cool feature that you all did. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Done. Thank you for sharing. If you haven't already, folks, be sure and go watch that video link that Michelle put, or somebody put it in the chat. Also, these slides are available on the agenda, and I think Kirsten also put them in the chat. So if you want to refer back to them. Otherwise, I think we're going to finish up for this session. We'll see everybody. You have 2 different sessions you can choose from at 10 o'clock. Integrating outcomes, adult education standards, and CTE outcomes is one. And we have a great speaker for that, Will Durden from Washington. And then we have some fabulous Illinois career navigators who are going to join in the other session. And Michelle's one of those. So she's got to say goodbye so that she can move over to the other session. So we'll see everybody at 10. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.